To avoid suspicion, he jogged back to the hotel where he had left Natasha, not wanting to admit that he hoped to catch a glimpse of the beautiful woman. And, as if by magic, she was sitting on the marble slab beside the fountain. He watched her talking on the phone and inched closer so he could hear her, using all the plants for camouflage. She was telling someone about the older adult who saved her. He stepped out of the greenery and took her phone. After ending the call, he handed it back to her. "I'm back. I decided I want dinner after all." He smiled at the expression on her face, a mixture of surprise, confusion, and, yes, a touch of anger. "Who are you? And how dare you hang up on my friend?" The phone rang, and Riku took it back and turned it off. "Excuse me?" she said, her jaw turning into a hard line. "I believe you have me confused with someone else. Please return my phone and kindly leave." He realized that she probably needed some explanation. After all, Natasha had no idea who he was. He handed her her phone back and said, "My grandfather sent me. He was not feeling well, but he suggested I come back since he knew you felt indebted to him for intervening in the elevator. He suggested I allow you to treat me to dinner instead of him to release you from any sense of obligation." He took her by the elbow and led them into the hotel restaurant without giving her a chance to respond. Taken aback, Natasha was at a loss for words. The old man had been quiet, stoic, and very reserved. So this brash grandson who took too much entitlement seemed very abrasive in comparison. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye as he selected a table and pulled out her chair. The man was without any charm, but very good looking, nonetheless. Without waiting for her to sit, he pushed down on her shoulders to indicate that she should sit. Natasha sat, still speechless. The waiter rushed over with 2 glasses of water and 2 menus and said he'd be right back for their order. Still not knowing what to say to this man, Natasha sipped some water and studied the menu, even though she wasn't hungry after eating the street vendor's pancakes. She could feel him staring intensely at her, which made her even more uncomfortable because she had no idea what he was thinking. Was he irritated that he must perform this dinner duty with an American because his grandfather requested it? Yet, it seemed that he was undressing her with his eyes. To break up her uneasy feeling, her good manners prevailed, and she held out her hand over the table in the space between them and said, "I'm Natasha Smith, but you can call me Tasha." "Why would I do that if your name is Natasha?" he said. She tried to explain that it was a nickname, a shorter version of her name. "That's stupid. I will call you by your name, Natasha." He just stared at her and didn't take her hand. Flabbergasted and embarrassed, she lowered her hand. He said, "My name is Riku Hiroshi." "So, Ricky for short?" Natasha said, and then couldn't believe she said that in a deliberate attempt to irritate him. He just stared at her in silence. She wanted to be gracious to this man, but only because his grandfather had been heroic. He had helped her beyond anything that Natasha could have asked. So, trying to be civil, she told Riku how his grandfather had helped her. Riku interrupted and cut her off. "Are you always this talkative?" Without thinking, she snapped. "Are you always this rude? This much of a jerk?" She glared at him, getting a tiny bit of satisfaction when he didn't answer. Then she asked, "Do you know who Michelle Obama is?" He just stared at her. "Since you went low, I am going high and leaving."